Welcome in, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Steven Simcox. And, Steven, there are 12 teams in the college football playoff. It's long overdue that we've had an expanded playoff. However, you do get the feeling that expansion is just a way for everybody to get more of their own in. And that's what I think the fear is for most. So let's go back and forth. We'll start with the SEC. How many teams of the 12 do you think they will have?
I'll say 4.
Okay, so that only leaves 8 spots.
Yes.
I do think that there's a very good shot that they're getting 4, which means that somebody for sure outside of whoever the group of 5 team is going to get 1.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
I mean, what do we think? So, like, SEC champion, obviously. So, presumably, like, Georgia.
SEC champion, SEC runner-up.
Yes.
The runner-up to that runner-up.
And then
whoever's
left.
Whoever left, it probably has a similar record.
Okay.
And mind you, with 16 teams or more in all these leagues, there's not going to be as much overlap in the schedule where you can just say, well, this one was – I mean, you could have, 3 10-2s and a 9-3 that really aren't that far apart. And 9-3 in the SEC, I would think gets you in unless you've got just a ton of teams at 11-1 with good records.
Yeah, I think the league is just going to get so much of the benefit of the doubt. And when I think about teams that could, Georgia, we'll see what Alabama does this year. Texas, Ole Miss is a trendy pick.
Yeah.
I think Mizzou is like an outside shot, depending on what they do this year. Like, there's just a lot of teams that you could see. I mean, LSU's like, there's just a lot of talented teams that if they win a big game or two, then suddenly they're right there in the mix.
I think if Ole Miss is not one of the at least 3 teams that will get in, they've failed this year because they're not doing all this for no reason.
Yeah, not to go to some random bowl game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so okay, we've already said there's going to be one group of 5. So we've got 5 teams in right now with 4 in the SEC and 1 group of 5. Let's go to the Big Ten. So we have 7 spots remaining.
7 spots left. Okay. I mean, I think we could see 3 Big Ten teams in there.
Okay.
That feels right.
Yeah.
Michigan and Ohio State seem very likely.
Yeah.
And then whichever team finishes just outside of those 2.
Okay.
Whether that's one of the new schools like Oregon or Penn State, like, I think there's a path for somebody. The weird thing, too, is going to be, like, in the old system, I mean, it was kind of dependent on each year, but there were some years where it helped to be in the conference title game, some years where maybe that really hurts you. But now, Paul, I think, like, if you go 10-2 and you don't have to play in a conference title game, that could be a big advantage because you don't add another loss to your resume.
Yeah. I think 10 wins in any league is going to be kind of the bottom rung. That's going to be the bottom rung for you're probably getting in. And then you get 9, it probably depends on the league you're in.
Right.
I don't think 9 the Big Ten's going to be a good league. I don't know if 9-3 gets you in the Big Ten this year, but it could surprise. We really don't know. So all right, so now that puts us at 8 teams. So we have 4 left, and we've not gotten to the Big 12 or the ACC or Notre Dame yet. Okay, so do you think Notre Dame will be a playoff team? Their schedule very favorable this year.
Yeah. I think they will. So I feel like we're probably looking at a scenario where either the Big 12 or the ACC has just one team.
So Notre Dame is in, so that gives us now, we're at 9.
Mm-hmm.
So the Big 12 or the ACC are just going to have one team. Which of those 2 leagues do you feel has the best shot to get 2 teams?
So I didn't extensively look at the ACC schedule yet. The first 2 teams I thought of were Clemson and Florida State.
Yeah.
Florida State looks like they have a very clear path. Clemson, it's a little more dicey. They got, that non-con game against Georgia, and then they have to play, Florida State and Clemson will play each other. So I ended up going with the Big 12. I think there's a way we could see like a Utah K-State, those 2 teams making the playoff. I just think the ACC possibly a team like Miami comes out of nowhere, but it really feels like it's kind of Florida State, Clemson, NC State, maybe, but none of those schools really seem
Miami,
to. Miami,
I think Miami, again, Miami's they're not quite in the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss spot yet, but I think you went out and I promise you, Cam Ward is getting paid more than any of the transfer quarterbacks. I wouldn't say he's probably getting paid more than any quarterback in the country, because I know that Quinn Ewers exists, and I know that Carson Beck exists,
right?
And guys like that. But I'd be willing to bet that Cam Ward costs more money than any of the other transfer quarterbacks, bar none. So you've got a big time transfer quarterback. You've got Damian Martinez, who I know was already doing well at Oregon State, so I would assume Miami matched or topped it. Probably topped it, just to throw a little bow on it. And then the wide receivers that they got as well. So they're in the offensive line. They're paying a lot of NIL money out of the Hurricane Collective or whatever it's called. So
I mean, blind thought right now.
Like, they better do something,
yes,
because they're paying a lot of money. Now, does that mean playoff? Maybe not, because they haven't even been close. Like, they're barely hanging on to being a team where you think about them in the top 25. So going to the playoff in a year, that might be, but 9-3 and knocking on the door, I think that's probably pretty reasonable given their investment and what they've wanted on Mario Cristobal.
If you ended up with two three-loss teams, Miami and, let's say, K-State, both lose in the conference title game, they both end up with 3 losses, there's kind of one playoff spot left. Which way do you think? I mean, I know this is a very hypothetical question, but which way do you think the committee would lean in that scenario?
Oh, gosh. Okay, give it to me again.
Two 3-loss teams, both lost in the conference title game.
Okay.
So they're the runners-up.
Yeah.
K-State and Miami.
I think they go to Miami.
Okay.
I think they go to Miami because the committee, who is a lot of football people, is surprisingly influenced by what used to be. And I've always thought that, but, I think Miami would get over K-State because they'd be like, the Hurricanes are back.
Yeah, the U.
The U is here, I don't know. Like I think they want that, and they look at that and they'll be like, oh, better luck next year, K-State. Sorry that you lost to Utah, and
right.
Maybe Kansas and some of the like K-State could lose to Utah, Utah in the championship game, and Kansas and Iowa State in the regular season, and those are all pretty good teams. And then Miami could lose to, say, Clemson or FSU in the title game. Would have maybe split with them earlier in the year. Who knows? Well, say they lose to FSU twice. Right? Say they lose to FSU twice, they might still get in, even though the playoff team that would be definitely going there showed them that they shouldn't be there.
Right.
Like I think name brands will still mean something, even though it should not. It's my biggest pet peeve with all of this, is that because when you start talking about name brands, and we saw it last year, Florida State has a pretty good name brand. Pretty good. But, they're Pepsi to Alabama's Coke. Bottom line, that's what they are. And the committee found an excuse. We're like, oh, well, one guy got hurt. And you're like, okay. I mean, I know he's a really, really fantastic player, but,
right.
I mean.
We're supposed to do this by the resume.
It's about the resume. Like, they still won those games and dominated on defense. You don't think there's more than one way to win a football game? Not in our minds. But you saw the 2 games that they won, right, against their biggest rival, and then the conference title game against a team that only lost once, right? Yeah. I mean, those don't count.
Well, it's just always such all right, let's make a decision based on basically gut feeling, and then let's get together and try to figure out the reasons as to why. So let's make the decision and then let's justify it. So when we get asked questions, we can point to this weird metric or this random stat or this hypothetical that supports our decision.
Yeah.
But brands do matter, and it's odd because like Miami, I understand it. I'm not gonna give a hot take and say K-State's a bigger brand, but it's been a long time since,
Yes.
like, in the U's not, I mean, it's a smaller school. Like, it's not this huge, it was a massive national thing. It's not really anymore.
Yeah. The U getting in the playoff based on brand name would be like, okay, we need to cast a new Iron Man. And they're like, you know what? You know who is big? Matt LeBlanc. You're like, well, I mean, I liked him in Friends, but I don't know if he's Iron Man. And you're like, in 1997, Matt LeBlanc was the balls. Okay, yeah. We're not going to miss this shot at getting Matt LeBlanc in this movie. And you're like, well, you know, what about Zac Efron? You're like, psh. I mean, please.
Yeah, I mean, all the great Miami players, like all the greats from that era, are now retired guys who are just like uncles on the sidelines. I mean, Ed Reed is just like walking around with a beard. I mean, I love Ed Reed. Like, he's amazing. But, you know, it's been a while since he was patrolling the secondary in the Miami uniform.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I think that's certain. That's something they have to realize that they're doing is, you know, hey, we've got tickets to Taylor Swift. Like, psh, have you heard of Counting Crows? Same night, much smaller venue.
Intermission's a little longer because they have to kind of recover, hydrate, whole thing. But.
Yeah, they, you know, they are going to have to take some calcium before the thing's over. There's not as much dancing, but I mean, Mr. Jones still slaps. Oh yeah, would you like to go see Kendrick Lamar? Like, no. I'm still holding out for the Fat Boys reunion tour.
Does an ACC that gets two teams in, does that help the doomsday clock at all for that conference? Like, does that? I assume not, because Florida State's issues are all about, you know, revenue and those types of things. But does that solidify or strengthen the conference at all if they're picked over like a Big 12 team?
Maybe. I don't like. Again, here's the thing: Florida State and Clemson are all mad, but like they've now set themselves up in the position to be the ones that are automatically picked, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so, I mean, I don't know. I like. Does it set them up better? I don't know. I don't know how they see this all ending. Like, I mean, I know that what their ideal thing is that they get out for as little money as they can, and then the SEC's like, we've been waiting for you. You know what? Like, we kept saying we didn't have this money. Guess what? We do. It's a secret.
We just had to play hard to get.
Yeah. You're the one we've always wanted.
Greg didn't want to show his cards.
Yeah. You know, like, Greg, why didn't you say anything? I didn't think you'd want me back. Just now they know that we all love each other. We can be a family. Oh. Roll credits. That's what they think.
Dabo agreed to only do 2 Bible studies a week. And finally, we're like, all right, we can do this.